The material contained in the Diverging Clear Podcast is for informational purposes only. The ideas and opinions expressed in the podcast does not represent the views or missions of the National Rail Passenger Corporation or Amtrak or the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission. This is the Diverging Clear Podcast.
Approach diverging, milepost 20.04. Diverging clear, milepost 20.06. Welcome to Diverging Clear, your transportation podcast, with your hosts William Moore and Jermaine Walker.
Welcome to the Diverging Clear Podcast. I'm your host, William Moore. And I'd first like to say thank you for tuning in, and also don't forget to click the like and subscribe button for this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google Play, Anchor, and other platforms that you listen to or watch your favorite podcast. Before we get to the main story, I want to update you on a story from one of our previous Diverging Clear podcast on infrastructure. The Caxor Group updated their plan for a new rail system connecting Mexico, the United States, and Canada. Here's an update from Progressive Railroading. On April 5th, 2021, a $3.3 billion infrastructure project connecting Centerport in Winnipeg, Manitoba, to Mexico's Pacific coast near Mazatlan advanced last week after Caxor Group selected Engaged Construction Management and Consulting Incorporated as leader of its Canadian operations. The Northern Corridor project, also known as the TMEC Corridor or USMCA Corridor, is an infrastructure project designed to allow Mexico to integrate into the logistics systems of Canada and the United States. The project calls for a port in Mazatlan, more than 186 miles of railway in Mexico, 8 logistics and industrial centers in Mexico, and at least 4 logistics centers between the United States and Canada. Recently, the development of cargo airports and highways in Mexico has been added. Caxor Group launched this project 6 months ago. So the update is just basically they've named their lead construction team, which I mentioned was Engaged Construction Management and Consulting. So as of now, contrary to what I believed, I thought that the Canadian Pacific KCS merger may put a nix on the project, but it appears to be that this Caxor Group is moving forward with their plans to build a brand new railway from Winnipeg, Manitoba, down to Mexico's Pacific coast. So, as of now, the project is moving forward. We'll see where the rubber meets the road, or the wheel meets the steel rail. Moving forward, if as financing becomes available or is raised for this project. So we'll just wanted to give a brief update on that they did name their construction management team. And I just thought that was interesting. Said especially on the heels of the announcement of the Canadian Pacific Kansas City Southern merger. And now, here we go to the feature story. Capacity, capacity, capacity. That's the name of this episode. Reason why we're calling it capacity, I'm calling it capacity, 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 is because a small incident. Well, I'm not gonna lie, a pretty large incident took place here a couple weeks ago, and it brought to the forefront uh, the constraints of the current global supply chain. So I just want to address a couple things. Everybody's been talking about the Suez Canal, but I kind of like to let die down and kind of shake out the people that don't have any business talking about this information. So, with that being said, here we go. So, as I mentioned, the name of this episode is Capacity, Capacity, Capacity. And there's a question: why have we so willingly gotten rid of it? A look at the Suez Canal incident and the dark and expensive truth behind our tightly stringed global supply chain kind of will help answer some of these questions. Not since April 2009, when the U.S. container ship Maersk Alabama was taken over by Somali pirates, which ultimately led to books and a movie starring Tom Hanks, has this unglamorous but super vital link in the supply chain garnered so much attention. But all that changed on Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021, when the Evergreen Marine Vessel Evergiven, a 1,300-foot container ship, ran aground in a perpendicular fashion, blocking the Suez Canal in Egypt. The Suez Canal is a vital trade route between Southeast Asia and Europe. Now this broken link has made it to prime time as late night TV pundits such as Bill Maher, Stephen Colbert, Trevor Noah, Seth Meyers are making their jokes about the Suez Canal being blocked. Even a few of the online news networks such as TYT, The Young Turks, and Jacobin have delved into the supply chain conversation that is usually out of sight, out of mind, except for transportation nerds like myself. And now that the Ever Given has finally been set free as of Monday afternoon, March 29th, this topic will again move away from mainstream media, but the global supply chain, in particular, the vital ocean ports, have been dealing with unprecedented congestion going back as far as August 2020, 5 months into the COVID-19 pandemic, and it continued well past the normal fall peak season into the holidays where traffic normally tapers off. But in January of 2021, the Port of LA and Long Beach had over 80 ships waiting at sea to unload because the port was so congested. Other ports on the West Coast, including SeaTac, also known as Seattle and Tacoma, was experienced major congestion too. Now, several factors are playing roles in this, including higher traffic volumes and some alleged labor slowdowns, lack of drivers to match the volume loads to be moved. Well, that is a story of the West Coast ports, but the East Coast ports have not been immune to congestion either. But congestion at ports worldwide causes another major issue that we will see as a direct result of the Ever Given blocking the Suez Canal, a container shortage. The logistics of the global supply chain relies heavily on a term we call in passenger railroading turn and burn of containers, meaning get the containers off the ship, deliver the goods, deliver the goods inside of them as fast as possible and reload them to go back to another port. In a perfect logistical world, containers full of imports will go back containers full of imports will go back with containers full of exports. But due to the trade imbalances globally, there's rarely a one-for-one trade-off, and it costs ocean carriers money and capacity to send empty containers back on these massive ships. Much of today's non-bulk imported goods travel in these 20 and 40-foot boxes or containers that stack like Legos onto these massive ships. Our global interconnected economies depend on these intermodal containers that can traverse multiple modes of transportation without unloading the goods from the container. They move by water, rail, and road. It is extremely efficient when all links are working properly. But when something goes awry and there is no alternative to move goods, assembly lines shut down, prices go up, and store shelves become empty. So, why is this global supply chain so tight? The global supply chain is designed to be tight. Think of it as a bike chain. A bike chain with too much slack stagnates your progress when you pedal. To businesses, that slack is money or capital tied up, not generating revenue or profits. But a bike chain with the correct number of links moves efficiently, and the money a business depend and the money, and the money a business spends to produce goods or a service comes right back as revenue and helps generate favorable profits. So where did this global supply chain originate? It began as a process known as just in time, GIT for short. According to Investopedia, the just in time inventory system is a management strategy that aligns raw material orders from suppliers directly with production schedules. Companies employ this inventory strategy to increase efficiency and decrease waste by receiving goods only as they need them for the production process, which reduces inventory. This method requires producers to forecast demand accurately. This approach has significantly increased efficient production among every industry imaginable. It has also created new services and auxiliary industries to meet this demand. As I mentioned in my analogy with the bike chain, when everything is moving as designed, it's an amazing system. However, when you have an incident like a vital trade route blocked for days due to an unforeseen or unpredictable occurrence, that one link breaking in the supply chain disrupts everything. It does not matter if the disruption is human error or caused by a natural disaster. The ramifications often outlast the incident. But why? Why does this negative if why does the negative effects of the disruption destabilize the supply chain? It goes back to one key principle involved in just in time. The origins of just in time was created by Toyota. Yes, just in time was originally called the Toyota Production System or TPS and was adopted by the car manufacturer in the 1970s. And getting to the point of the I'm sorry, and getting to the key point that causes these negative ripple effects. According to Investopedia, the success of the JIT production process relies on steady production, high quality workmanship, no machine breakdowns, and reliable suppliers. My point of emphasis is the no machine breakdowns. The no machine breakdowns means that the plant is not going to have backup machines. The term machine in the global supply chain is any transportation or logistics asset that moves raw materials or finished products. And the reason behind this concept is simple. Those machines are awfully expensive from a capital cost perspective. The more production you get out of fewer machines will drop a company's overhead cost. So, jumping back to the Suez Canal incident, the solution to the problem caused by the Ever Given running aground isn't to build a second Suez Canal. That's just not feasible. That's just not financially feasible approach. But there must also be some realization that things do not always go according to plan. So now we reach this dilemma. What is the proper planning for when or if something goes wrong? What is the proper allocation of overhead costs to prepare for a hypothetical breakdown in the supply chain? To me, the answer is additional capacity and redundancies. But I will even admit that's not completely the right answer. The entire reason behind JIT was to increase the efficiency of capital assets. So we aren't going to have a spare canal waiting to be used if another one becomes congested or blocked. This is what the Staggers Act railroads to do railroads to do, lower their overhead costs by allowing them to abandon or sell redundant assets. It worked as intended. However, like everything in the world, too much of a good thing can become bad. Due to the globally connected economies, capacity and infrastructure needs to be modernized to keep up with the current and future growth. The Suez Canal incident should have all of us, not just America, rethinking how the future infrastructure should look. I'm going to take a short commercial break here. Been talking quite a bit, fumbling a little bit. Sorry. But don't forget to click the subscribe and the like button on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Anchor, or whatever platform you are enjoying or you are using to enjoy this podcast. Going to take a short break and I'll be right back.
Diverging Clear is sponsored by EME Rail Solutions LLC. We don't own rail cars, locomotives, or tracks, but if you do, we provide cutting edge solutions to maximize your assets. Visit us at emerail.net to learn more. Diverging Clear is also brought to you by Three Kings Freight Brokerage LLC. Visit Three Kings Freight Brokerage LLC.com to learn more about their services.
I am happy to introduce to the Diverging Clear Podcast list of sponsors on target pest management for commercial and residential applications. On target pest management is a fully licensed pest control contractor that can prevent pests from entering your home or business or eliminate them if they so happen to enter your friendly confines. They'll give them a call at area code 630-995-6849. Once again, that's 630-995-6849 for a free quote. On Target Pest Management provides service in the Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana area. Check them out on Instagram at On Target Pest Management. And now back to the show. And welcome back to the Diverging Clear Podcast. Don't forget to click the like button or subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Anchor, whatever platform you enjoying this podcast on. So picking up where I left off, what do I mean when I say rethinking how future infrastructure should look? Well, let's look at the dates when certain transportation networks were created. Let's start with the aforementioned Suez Canal. This canal was completed in 1869. Yes, 1869 the Suez Canal was completed. Okay, so that seems a little extreme, right? The first American transcontinental railroad was also completed in, you guessed it, 1869, same year as the Suez Canal, over 150 years ago. Let us look at another canal, the Panama Canal, was completed in 1914, just over 107 years ago. I just listed a few transportation systems to make a point. There's dozens, if not hundreds, of other cases that are pretty long in tooth also. The point is this. Over the past 150 years, we do have a better understanding of what makes ideal logistics and passenger systems. Railroads have adapted the way that they operate these fixed networks. One of the buzzwords for the past 10 to 15 years is precision scheduled railroading, or PSR. If you look at the PSR concepts and the just-in-time principles, many of them overlap. Maximize asset utilization, reduce excess capacity to reduce overhead costs, predictability in raw materials, or in this case would be empty cars, and finished products, all which are good principles to operate by. However, the execution of these principles can and should cause more growth, and the way that PSR and GIT systems are set up, it just can't handle that growth. It just cannot handle that growth. A service disruption, or in the Suez Canal case, the global economy cannot handle that either. So, what do? Here's my tie to the new infrastructure proposal put out by the Biden administration Build Back Better plan. We simply cannot just rebuild the current highways, bridges, railroads, schools, transit systems, and water systems. We definitely need to take care of those, no doubt about it. But we also need to develop and invest in new transportation and communication systems that can bring America into the 21st century. This will help with driving economic growth in areas where these new systems are created. For example, President Biden mentioned new railroads. If there's some project on the horizon that can provide rural shippers another alternative to move their goods to market, that opens new opportunities for farmers. If you have a new business that will utilize a new railroad, such as through intermodal, not in a metropolitan hub, but maybe on the outskirts of a metropolitan area, that brings economic growth. Also, the fixed rail routes of today will not be suitable routes in the near future. So instead of waiting until the problem cripples the nation's transportation and logistics systems, we need to plan for the growth and invest now so we can be ready. One prime example of that is a Trains article. I'm sorry, article I just read in Progressive Railroading, where I mentioned in the previous part of this episode where there has been port congestion on the east and west coast. Now, South Carolina just opened up its Leatherhead terminal in North Charleston, and just in time to help alleviate some of this port congestion. But that was done ahead before these ports became congested. I'm pretty sure this has probably been a 10 or 15 year process of them planning, strategizing, getting funding to open this Leatherhead terminal. And just as the nation needs another uh, seaport that handles containers, they're coming online to help alleviate some of that congestion. So just those type of things is planning for the future. We need to continue to do those type of things for future growth, because as projections are going now, we will have significant growth in import, export traffic, and even domestic production. And our current infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, isn't equipped to handle it. So we do need to start planning to handle these things. So moving forward, the next portion of this I want to talk about, is just we need the new exit. Just as I mentioned, we need the new networks for more growth. But on one note, we do have to see infrastructure beyond the physical assets of transportation. Any task that we do requires some type of infrastructure. There's been a lot of debate, pretty needless, for about what exactly infrastructure is, and everybody tends to think that it's just um, physical roads, physical buildings. And we even have people now arguing whether a water system and pipes are considered infrastructure. I mean, that's just the most basic living infrastructure, but that's something else to talk about. But for example, another form of infrastructure that often is overlooked is childcare. For example, a parent or parents working needs childcare infrastructure in place to be able to go to work each day. Now that can take shape in many forms, including a daycare facility or facilities for young children, or schools for older children, and funding and financing to be able to place your children in those facilities. So that is also considered infrastructure. It's not just the physical Yes, there are physical assets associated with that, but there's also funding mechanisms that need to be incorporated with that type of infrastructure that makes it workable for American citizens. As is many other forms, this, as I mentioned, this is much needed infrastructure, as we have had many incidents, especially during the pandemic, of parents struggling to be able to do the at-home e-learning, and also being able to go to for essential workers that still have to physically don't have the luxury of having be able to work from home. These are assets and infrastructure that's needed for people to be able to take care of their families. So, this type of infrastructure is definitely needed. And so I am glad to mention that these assets are currently contained within the Biden Build Back Better plan. As is many other forms of infrastructures to address the needs of American people and American businesses. All of these systems are really interconnected, from childcare to highways to public transit. All of these systems are interconnected. A blocked canal halfway across the world will have the effect on businesses and operations here in America. And we cannot decouple from the global economy, but that will be for another podcast episode. So, just in overall, when we're looking at what happened at the Suez Canal, we need to understand what the implications of those type of things are. Um, the one thing, like I said, that we have to be ready for the 21st century. We're already 2 decades into the 21st century, and we're still moving and operating as if we're still in the 1930s and 40s here in America. Um, One big thing is like I said, the Suez Canal incident showed us the need for us to be prepared and ready, and stop all the unnecessary bickering and fighting about infrastructure. There's numerous forms and shapes of infrastructure, including high-speed internet, which we saw became very important during this global pandemic. So there's many different forms of infrastructure. There's many different forms that we need to increase the capacity so we can move people and goods efficiently. And so the Suez Canal incident kind of showed us that we are still globally connected. I'm telling you, we're still going to feel ripple effects from this blockage probably for the next couple months to come. Because as I was reading Wall Street Journal and some different publications, they were already speaking of the container shortage and the that's taking place now in Europe, and that will eventually spread to the U.S. as we just don't have the means to move finished products or accept finished products because there's no containers. So backlogs are going to grow. So this is something that's, like I said, that's just gonna continue to exasperate itself if we don't start preparing for the future and preparing to be able to take care of this stuff as we need to. So one of the things is that I encourage everyone to pay attention to what's going on with this infrastructure bill. This is hugely critical to the future of American dominance on the global stage. Right now, we're faltering because we've been arguing about infrastructure for the better part of the last 30 years. We've made some strides, but not the strides that the rest of the world is making. So, with that being said, just want to go ahead and wrap this up, but I definitely want to say thank you for tuning in to the Diverging Clear Podcast, episode number 8, Capacity, Capacity, Capacity. We don't have it, we need it, and besides that, I think I touched on everything I wanted to touch on. If you have any questions or concerns or feedback, please don't hesitate if you're on YouTube to leave a comment. If you're if you want to check out my email address, that would be, you can provide feedback at divergingclearpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that's divergingclearpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, like I said, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe. Don't forget to share this to your friends that might be interested in this type of talk about infrastructure and capacity. Please do share. And like I said, if you're listening to the audio version of this on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, Anchor, don't forget to subscribe to that also. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Diverging Clear 1 and on Instagram at Diverging_Clear_podcast. And also, don't forget to like us on Facebook. Have a good day. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe. We'll talk to you soon.